Hi, my name is Dr. Erin Marley, and I'm a veterinarian and scientific communications specialist with Royal Canin, Canada. In this presentation, we're going to talk about healthy feeding habits, what to look for when choosing a diet to help maintain a healthy weight, and the best way to feed to help maintain that weight. And why do we talk about this? Well, more than half of cats and dogs in North America have a disease that impacts their quality of life and can significantly shorten their lifespan. And that disease is obesity. This is a disease that is both preventable and manageable. In this presentation, we're going to focus mostly on prevention. And we're going to talk about Lola. Now, Lola is a 5-kilogram ragdoll cat, and she's been fed 3/4 of a cup of a kibble that's designed for indoor cats every day. Now, if I asked you how many calories are in that 3/4 cup of kibble, what would you say? Well, to ask a similar question, how would you answer if I asked how many calories are in a piece of fruit? Then what would you say? It's the same as basic challenge. It completely depends on the piece of fruit. Is it an apple? Is it an orange or maybe a cantaloupe? We need more information in order to determine the calories coming from that piece of fruit. So let's say, for example, that we are actually comparing apples to apples, and we know the exact amount of calories in one cup. The next question becomes, what type of cup are we talking about? How are we measuring the cup? Are we referring to a standard and calibrated measuring cup like you see on the left? Or are they actually using a household coffee cup like the one on the right? And incidentally, for those of you who drink as much coffee as I do, that cup on the right is a pretty big cup by default and actually contains more like 1 3/4 of a cup. But let's say that Lola's owner is using a standard real measuring cup and she's able to precisely measure 3/4 of a cup per day. Now we find out that the caloric density of her diet is 345 kilocalories per cup. So that means that Lola is getting 258 kilocalories per day. Now we would expect a 5-kilogram moderately active cat to need about 250 kilocalories per day to maintain her weight. Now keep in mind, this is an estimate. It's going to vary a little bit by individual. So there is some variation that can exist here. But this amount makes sense for Lola, and she's maintaining, she's not losing weight on this amount, and she's not gaining weight on this amount. So it seems to be right for her. Now, what happens when Lola's owner decides to change her diet for some reason? Maybe she saw a sale or she saw a new product that was interesting to her at the pet store and she brings that home for Lola instead. Now, this new diet contains 475 kilocalories per cup, but Lola's owner doesn't realize this, so she continues to feed the same amount she always has, 3/4 of a cup per day, using this new diet. This is a very common scenario that we hear all the time when people change diets. It doesn't always occur to them to go back and make sure that the feeding amounts are the same. So with this new diet, Lola's caloric intake has actually increased by almost 100 kilocalories per day, or about 40% higher than what she was getting before. So we can guess what's going to happen next. Now we also mentioned that Lola's owner is carefully measuring the diet, and Lola is receiving exactly the prescribed 3/4 of a cup of her diet, that she should be using this calibrated measuring cup. But how likely is this actually? Well, there have been actually a couple of veterinary studies that looked at measuring kibble with measuring cups, and they demonstrated that there was a high degree of inaccuracy associated with using measuring cups to portion out kibble. These studies showed that using a measuring cup can result in overestimation of meal volume by up to 80%, although the average was an overmeasurement of about 20%. Now, you can see that this would have a significant impact with any diet that we're using, but the more calorie dense the diet is to begin with, the more significant an impact that overmeasurement will be. So it's no wonder that we see pets continue to gain weight even when owners are trying to measure the diet. So as a first step, Lola's owner can start weighing the food in grams rather than relying on the cup. Now, how does she know how much to feed in grams? Well, in most cases, it is actually on the bag. So to save time, Lola's owner can actually measure out the daily portion in grams just once in the morning, put that kibble into a separate container, and feed from there for the rest of the day. So she doesn't have to get out her scale every single time she needs to feed a meal. She can just do it once, which is going to save time, actually even more so than using a measuring cup. So Lola's owner starts weighing the new diet, but now she's noticing something new. To maintain Lola's previous calorie intake, her feeding amount volume is significantly reduced from 3/4 of a cup per day to about half a cup per day in terms of volume. So how do we think Lola's going to respond to having her feeding amount decreased from 3/4 of a cup to half a cup? Now, while her nutrient and caloric needs are being met at this lower feeding amount with the new diet, Lola happens to be a food-motivated cat and may not feel that satisfied on this smaller meal volume. And anyone who's met a cat can attest to this. So Lola's owner heads back to the store. Now, Lola is not currently overweight. Thankfully, we've caught her in time, but she is a food-motivated cat and is prone to begging. So she is at a high risk for weight gain. It's very easy to cave and feed extra when we have a begging cat on our hands. So Lola's owner needs a diet that's going to help Lola feel more satisfied, but not provide the excessive calories. So how can nutrition help? And this is where we need to consider the individual in front of us when deciding what is going to be the best option to feed Lola. Now, when it comes to nutrition, there's a number of ways nutrition can help. And one nutrient we talk about in weight management is protein, and actually high protein in particular. Now, this is a picture of an Abyssinian cat, which is a breed that is naturally lean and has a short coat, so you can get a really good sense of muscle definition. Higher protein levels in the diet help maintain this muscle mass, which in turn helps maintain healthy metabolism. And a high protein meal is also going to help prolong that feeling of satiety, or in other words, that full or satisfied feeling you get after a meal. The other thing we can do with nutrition is look at the fiber blend, and along with that, the caloric density. These two things are very closely related. Now, fiber has a number of important functions in the body. It feeds the beneficial bacteria or the microbiota in the bowel, which in turn produce the energy source for the cells that line the bowel walls. So fiber is essential for GI health. This helps strengthen the barrier that protects the bowel from pathogens, or in other words, bad bacteria. And as well, fiber helps regulate the passage of material through the bowel and helps create normal, healthy stool. Now, because animals like cats and dogs, and incidentally humans, do not digest fiber to get energy, fiber is not actually a source of calories. So including fiber in the diet also has the effect of lowering the caloric density of the diet. So if we go back to the two options that have been offered to Lola and look at them in a little bit of a different way, we can see that although the calories are being provided the same for both types of food, when fiber is added to the diet, the caloric density is going to decrease. So more fiber means a larger volume of food to meet caloric needs, whereas less fiber makes a more energy-dense food. So this means that the pet can actually eat enough to meet their energy needs while still feeling satisfied. And fiber also still has that beneficial role in GI health that we just talked about. Now let's look at a human example for a minute. So you can take in the same number of calories from a small milkshake or smoothie, or from a full meal that contains fiber from vegetables or whole grains and beans. The volume of food that you can eat with the example on the left is going to be quite a bit greater particularly if it's in combination with a higher level of protein than the option on the right. And it's going to help you feel more satisfied for a longer period of time. Now, diets that are formulated for weight loss actually take this one step further. The nutrient density in these diets is also increased, which allows us to feed fewer calories to encourage weight loss while still providing essential nutrients. The increased protein and fiber in the diet are going to help ensure the pet feels satisfied while calories are restricted, but importantly that we are still getting all the nutrients we need at this lower calorie amount. And this is why we cannot simply feed less of a maintenance diet and expect to achieve weight loss. The pet will not receive enough of these essential nutrients. They'll be more likely to beg and actually less likely to gain weight, lose weight. Apologies. When we talk about caloric density, what are we actually looking for? Well, as Lola's owner discovered, there's quite a large variability in the caloric density of the diet. Generally speaking, diets that are in the range of 300 to 400 kilocalories per cup are pretty typical or average caloric densities that are going to be appropriate for the vast majority of our pets. Remember that typical house cat will need around 225 to 250 kilocalories per day to maintain a healthy weight. Now, diets can be close to or even lower than 300 kilocalories per cup, typically if they're being used for weight management, where in contrast, more calorie-dense formulas or those that have more than 400 kilocalories per cup can be useful in pets that have maybe fussier appetites or are less food motivated or simply are more active or have very high energy needs. Like some of our very active dog breeds, for example. And how do we know how calorie dense a diet is? Well, again, in most cases, it's going to be printed on the bag. So in this case, we have a maintenance diet that's intended for indoor cats on the left and a diet formulated for weight management on the right. And we can pick out the calorie information quite easily here on the side panel of the bag when we look for it. Now, if we can't find calorie information on the bag, the next place to look is the manufacturer's website. And we can typically find calorie information here along with some basic nutritional information as well. Now, if this cannot be found on the website either, you can always contact the manufacturer directly and their contact information will always be printed on the bag. Now, let's move from the diet for a second and talk about treats, which also have a big impact on our pet's weight. The general rule of thumb when it comes to treats for our pets is that 10% of the daily caloric intake can come from treats. So if we're talking about our 5 kilogram Lola, that's about 20 kilocalories per day from treats. And if we're talking about dogs, it's about 30 kilocalories per day for a small Havanese-sized dog, 50 kilocalories per day for a medium Beagle-sized dog, and 120 kilocalories per day for a large Labrador-sized dog. As with the diets, calorie information and calories per treat are typically printed on the packaging. But what about the other treats? We don't always think about the caloric content of the various human foods that are frequently given as treats, but these calories can add up very quickly. So imagine a dog whose energy needs for the day are 500 kilocalories per day to keep it easy. So 50 kilocalories can be in the form of treats every day. Now look at some of these human food options. 1 ounce of cheese, which is about the size of a pair of dice, is 100 kilocalories, so double the treat allotment for this size dog. 1 hot dog, 110 kilocalories. A tablespoon of peanut butter is 92 kilocalories. So all of these examples far exceed the treat allotment for this dog, and overfeeding with treats not only leads to obesity, but actually can have the effect of unbalancing the diet as a whole. So we don't see the same good results as we would have feeding any diet exclusively. So we need to factor in the treats that are being given and make sure that we're not exceeding the recommended amount for the particular pet. And keep in mind that these human treats are very hard to account for the calories because we are not very good at eyeballing the amount and estimating how many calories are in there. We've also become very accustomed to using treats to show love to our pets. So it can be easy to forget that what our pets want from us the most is love and attention. We don't always need to reward with food. Lastly, we can combine feeding time and play into one to the benefit of the pet as well. So this is another way we can bring some value to a recommendation that we make in store, in addition to a specific formula and precise measuring. This is an example of an interactive cat feeder. So this cat is working a little extra for his food. In the process, he's using up more calories. It's slowing him down, which lets him get a chance to feel full before he's hoovered an entire bowl. It's also providing him really good mental engagement. And here's another example. This is a feeder for dogs that slows them down. Can also be a really good source of mental stimulation, especially for busy puppies or an active dog like this 3-year-old Parson Russell Terrier. So to summarize with some key points, choosing the right diet means matching the diet to the individual's needs. Are they a food-motivated pet or not? What's their activity level like? Are they very active or are they more of a homebody? If we measure the diet in grams, regardless of the pet, it's going to help us prevent overfeeding and will help prevent weight gain as well. And also, let's keep in mind that play is its own reward. We can make mealtimes engaging by using puzzle feeders or interactive treat dispensing toys to make mealtimes more engaging, slow the pets down that may otherwise gulp their food. Now, if the pet is already overweight or obese or has another medical condition, a veterinarian is an excellent resource to get a feeding recommendation. But if you have questions about a feeding guide or feeding amounts, or maybe just need help choosing a diet for a healthy pet, please contact the Royal Canin Consumer Care Team. They are happy to help choose a diet for a healthy pet. We very much appreciate your time and attention today. We'd love to get some feedback from you as well. If you scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, it will take you to a short survey. We really value any feedback you have to improve our training in the future. I hope you found this information useful and you can take some key points back to your daily lives and improve the lives of pet overall. Thank you so much.